You don't have to change anything because you're a Pisces North Node and like the book says you need to do this. Like, you change it because it doesn't feel good to stay in the South Node patterns of the past. There's a reason that we chose to like try to develop this way, because this is how you can help yourself to feel better, is to develop more balance with the sister sign of the sign that's gone out of control, aka your South Node. Hello, dear friends, it's Carly, and today it is my pleasure to be bringing it back to this series on all 12 of the North Nodes and how each placement can get the most out of this current transit of the North Node through Taurus. So that transit isn't over until July of 2023. So we do still have over a year of this energy left to work with, sculpt, play with, make the most out of it as best we can. And I love that I'm bringing it back around to this series to finish the last 7 episodes. I didn't even get halfway through in February before I had to push pause essentially and go divert my attention to something else. I couldn't just continue on with what I had originally intended. And I think that that is such a beautiful segue back into the series now with the Pisces North Node chapter. This is my placement. I also have my North Node in the 12th house. So one of the pieces that I do want to layer in here, that like now that I've taken 3 months off of making this series and now I'm going to come back and make, the second half, it's like I learned a lot in these last 3 months. And one of the things that I learned is that for me personally, based on what I learned, I'm no longer going to smush together the signs and their like corresponding house. I learned that like that's really like not as much of a thing as like the last 40, 50 years have made it out to be. That like anciently, there really wasn't that close of an association, or any at all maybe, between like Pisces and the 12th house, for example. They weren't synonymous with each other. However, I'm already halfway into this series and I'm just going to keep going. So if you have a Pisces North Node or a 12th house North Node, I will do my best to still weave it all together. And if I do mention something that is definitely more Pisces or more 12th house, I'll do my best to call that out as we get there. So leading up to sharing some tips and some ideas around how can a Pisces or 12th house North Node get the most out of this Taurus North Node transit, first I'm going to spend the bulk of this video going over really what does it mean to have a Pisces or a 12th house North Node. And where I want to start is that it means you have a Virgo or a 6th house South Node. And basically with our South Node and North Node, our South Node becomes like our comfort zone or the most overdeveloped part of our mix of energies, and therefore the North Node is kind of the least developed part, therefore the part that we're wanting to grow in this lifetime. And so one of the pieces that is evolving in my own understanding is the mixture of how we incorporate and integrate both of these energies, because the main piece of the South Node is that it is not a matter of like leaving it behind you. I don't think that that's really possible. Like going back to the idea of it is the most overdeveloped part of your personality. So in this case, Virgo, 6th house, like that is a really dominant part of who you are and how you engage with the world. At least it was when your soul was born into this particular lifetime. And so that's where I want to start, is like this Virgo 6th house South Node fabric of who our soul was coming into this life. Within that, there are 2 different sides of this South Node that I want to kind of like tease apart and then use to support each other. Basically, like what are the talents and the skills that this energy being so highly developed inside of you, like it gives you superpowers. It gives you Virgo superpowers, basically. And because it's our South Node, it also means that you have like a really, really healthy dose of the Virgo shadow as well. So that's basically how this is all going to weave together, as far as like, let's be grateful that we have the Virgo 6th house talents and skills that are just part of who we are, because we've developed this through lots and lots of previous lifetimes, I'm guessing. And let's illuminate and educate ourselves, make ourselves aware of what does it look like when the South Node shadow is what's staring us in the face, like AKA when are we like spinning our wheels in our South Node? What behavior, what thought patterns, what feelings can we watch out for, so that we recognize that that's what's happening, is that we are spinning our wheels in our South Node. And in that moment, we can do our best to reach for the North Node end of things. And we're going to get to that as far as attributes to develop. Okay, so our first talent to be grateful for is our skillful helpfulness and the thoughtfulness that we bring to everyday life, and what that allows as far as the quality of service that we are able to provide. Like, for example, I have basically my whole career from waitressing to like account management to working in a phone bank at a software company. Like, I mean, all of my jobs pretty much center around this idea of customer service. And there is a very natural part of the fabric of this soul signature that says, like, I'm really good at taking my needs and setting them to the side and looking out at what is in front of me, and as intuitively as I possibly can, allowing myself to meet the needs that I am sensing. So even coming into, like, recently on my channel, I shared about my Saturn return, and that during my Saturn return, I opened a grocery store, and my talent for customer service played a role in the fabric of what that store eventually became. The general culture of that business being, we take such good care of our customers. We treat them like family. We treat them like people that we respect and are happy to see every single time they come into the store. So that talent for being of service and providing really high quality service is something that you can be thankful for within your Virgo 6th house superpowers. And the shadow that basically, like, the self-torturing compulsive thoughts that create that skillful helpfulness and quality of service are hyper anxious reactions. So, like, basically hypersensitivity that you're not doing enough, that you're not helping enough, that there are people's needs around you that are going unmet because you're slacking off and not doing enough. There is, like, just seems to be a very strong sense of guilt, like internalized guilt. Like, anytime you sense anything out of order in the world, it's instantly a sense of guilt. And the guilt, in my experience, motivates me into action and into being of service in the world. And it's like, being of service is a great thing, yes, and we don't want to lose that skill. We couldn't lose it if we wanted to, but we can be on the lookout for, like, when are we guilting ourselves? When are we really, like, internalizing these unrealistic expectations of we need to be helping everyone with everything all the time and being responsible for everyone around us. The next Virgo superpower is competence and precision. Like how Stephen Forrest puts it, he says that Virgo is the energy where we can stick with something long enough to get really good at it. And you think about, like, the learner's mindset that requires, the ability to fail and learn and try again and not give up until you get really good at it. Like, Virgo has that master apprentice vibe to it, where it represents technical skills that you have to stick with for a long time in order to learn. Like, let's say you're going to write code for a software company, or you want to learn to be an electrician or something technical, where it's going to take at least a year or two to like really get the hang of how that system works and how not to electrocute yourself when you go poking around in there. So that drive to be really good at your skills and what you offer and your attention to detail, like, again, that level of precision and competence is not going anywhere. It's going to be part of the DNA of who you are. However, the shadow that drives those talents looks like overanalysis, overthinking, constant questioning, chronic self-doubt, eternal editing, like the sense of it's not good enough yet, wanting to keep whatever creation it is that you're doing to yourself until it's perfect, and then I'll be ready to share it. But perfect is an illusion. It's a myth that doesn't exist. So there's a paralysis in that. There's a talent, because of that level of precision, for finding errors and mistakes and faults in the world, and basically making it your job to tell everybody what's wrong with everything. And so that's part of that, what we want to let go of like, we can be really grateful for our attention to detail, and we can pull it out of the toolbox and we can apply it when it makes sense. But as a general rule, everybody's allowed to be exactly as they are. So you spot a typo in something for something that's not yours. Interesting. Moving on. Like, we don't have to fix it. We can create a distance between what everybody else is doing and what we're doing. Part of that learner and growth mindset and orientation that Virgo and the 6th house share is this natural humility, this natural ability to learn from other people who know more about it than you do, this openness to want to prioritize and commit to accuracy. There's a very natural setting aside of the ego. While Virgo definitely hates to be wrong, at the end of the day, they would hate it more if we did it wrong and nobody fixed it, and then we find out way later that you did it wrong and it caused this damage or whatever. Like, I'd rather take the ego hit in the moment and fix it so it's right when it actually like goes out into the world. So prioritizing the accuracy over your ego is something that like, that's a skill. That, again, is the ability to say, crap, I messed that up, but that's cool that we caught it and we fixed it. Great, good to go. But on the flip side of that humility is that it's shadow, and that setting aside of your ego and, wanting to prioritize the accuracy of what you're doing, there can be a constant worry that you are making a mistake. There's like a chronic level of self-doubt, as far as like, basically the humility comes almost as much out of not thinking that you're ever really good enough. So like, where's the ego gonna even come from? So like, humility, again, on the surface, like, sounds really good, but like, if it's coming from like a sense of like, I'm never going to be perfect enough, so where's my sense of self-worth? Like, of course I'm humble. Like, I don't have anything to be like braggadocious about. Like, so you got to watch for the self-doubt, self-punishing, putting yourself down because you're not good enough, and that you're using humility to bypass the fact that you have a self-worth issue that's wanting to be worked out. So that brings us to the attributes to develop. So this is thinking on that Pisces or 12th house North Node end of things. And as far as letting our North Node be our North Star and guide us when we can consciously recognize the patterns in our behavior. Let's say we catch ourselves spinning in self-doubt, perfectionism, needing to control the outside world, and like micromanaging everybody and everything. When we catch ourselves in that Virgo South Node, 6th house South Node, that is a choice point. There's no right, there's no wrong. You're welcome to live and die in your Virgo South Node as much as you want. But there is a choice point at that time when you recognize, this is my past karma. This is the over-exaggerated part. This is the out of balance part. And in that moment of recognition, you get to choose, do I want to continue to perpetuate my past, or am I open to shifting gears and even asking myself, what would it look like in this moment to go more with the flow, to let go of anything that I might be needing to prove to anyone. One of the attributes to develop is God's love is absolute. And that sentence is like really difficult to like cut through the programming and the conditioning of today's world, because one, we mentioned God, two, we mentioned love, and three, we mentioned absolute, and really like almost nothing in this world is absolute. Like almost everything is dual, everything has multiple sides. So like, what the hell are you even talking about with absolute? God's love is absolute. Like with Pisces and 12th house North nodes, it is about surrendering to this positive higher power, this interconnected good of the all that is always unfolding. Like there's almost part of it that feels like a step along the way is to buy in yourself to the fact that well-being is natural, well-being is dominant. Like source energy is more how I relate to the God vibration. And so I believe like source energy in my interpretation and feeling of it, and working with this energy just in my own space, which is exactly what Pisces 12th house North Node is encouraged to do. So whatever that looks like for you. But for me, it's like source energy is pure positive energy, to borrow an Abraham Hicks term, which is definitely who helped me to buy into this fact that well-being is dominant. Source energy is pure positive energy. It's the highest vibration energy that there is no such thing really as like negative or evil. There's only like allowing the source energy love that is natural or not, pinching yourself off from it. And so in the Virgo end, in the past life end, there's such a tendency to want to control the details and to make a plan, and that a couple of different pieces. One, that most likely there was something that blindsided you completely at some point, and that left a deep wound of feeling unprepared, and that it cost you greatly. And so the flip side of that is that you really developed your Virgo 6th house preparation skills, and now you got mad skills in the preparation department, a little too much. And now we're here to recognize that, yes, those are our superpowers. Yes, there are pieces of it that have outlived their usefulness, and that we can shed in pieces and layers, and that we do that by consciously choosing to follow our North Node, consciously choosing to ask ourselves, am I trying to prove something? Am I trying to earn love? Am I trying to like prove that I'm valuable? Am I still going because I feel like I haven't done enough? Like these are questions that if the answers are yes, that like, okay, so we're over here twirling in our South Node, further unraveling and becoming aware of the karma of the South Node. Like no time is ever wasted over there. That's how we unravel. That's how we become aware of the path forward. We recognize that like, yeah, these patterns like don't feel good. You don't have to change anything because you're a Pisces North Node and like the book says you need to do this. Like you change it because it doesn't feel good to stay in the South Node patterns of the past. There's a reason that we chose to like try to develop this way, because this is how you can help yourself to feel better, is to develop more balance with the sister sign of the sign that's gone out of control, aka your South Node. Another big one, this is mostly, I will say, for like the 12th house side of the North Node, but definitely Pisces also, but like basically facing the unknown, like finding the limits of what you know and then going beyond. And the reason that can be so helpful, again, this is very much the 12th and 6th houses part, where basically like you are letting go of your identification with the role you serve. Like that idea of service, like it's so deeply encoded, like that there's a, when I'm of service, then I'm valuable. And so inside of any situation, you're constantly looking for like, what is my role? What's my service? How am I bringing value to this situation? And because that's how I know I'm valuable. And this 12th house Pisces end is about letting go of all identification with any definition in the physical world. Like you are going swimming in the deep end of the pool, in a pool of love and worthiness and like natural inborn deservability of like Source's unconditional love. I want to share this little phrase that Stephen Forrest puts in his Yesterday's Sky, Astrology and Reincarnation by Stephen Forrest. This is the new book that I got that definitely adds another dimension to Jan Spiller's book. Okay, it's just so good because it's so extreme, right? And extreme examples like definitely help us understand, they clarify things. So what those words signify, God's love is absolute. What those words signify is that there is nothing a human being can do to affect God's love. Being absolute, it is beyond conditioning. Thus, in terms of love, God doesn't give a merry damn whether we feed the hungry children of the world or murder people at random. Stating the principles in shocking terms like that hopefully awakens us to the sheer, liberating Piscean power of the idea of absolute love. With the North Node in Pisces, this person has reached a point in the journey where he or she needs to let go of identification with the idea of struggling to evolve. He or she needs to play, to become as a little child. It is time to get out of his or her own way. Time to surrender. God's love is absolute. Like, we are loved. There is nothing to earn. We get to be happy. We get to, like, I like to think about the Pisces North Node, 12th house North Node as like a potential portal of Source's unconditional love into this world. That like there is a potential to embody the joy that is possible when the being is loved unconditionally and fully. And we all are, we all are loved like that as Source. Like I personally believe in my own space that like we are each extensions of Source energy itself. So like not only are you loved fully and unconditionally by Source energy, you are Source energy. So like you are that powerful, unconditional love. Nothing to prove, nothing to earn, nothing to ever sway the jury or the verdict even one slight millimeter. There's no question. There's no doubt. Like you think about that shadow of Virgo and self-doubt, like the answer is this Pisces knowing of love that is beyond doubt. You know that this bigger, higher, positive power loves you unconditionally, and that would like basically eradicate any need to ever doubt yourself. Obviously, that's easier said than done, but in that moment of recognizing yourself spinning in the Virgo South Node shadow of perfectionism and self-doubt and overthinking and trying to control the exterior world, it's like this is what we're reaching for. We're reaching for sinking back into that knowledge that like I've already earned it. I'm here. I'm alive. And that means I'm done. I'm already here. The 12th house, let's see. So this is in the 12th house North Node chapter. Now in the present life, it is pivotal that he or she lets go of the karmic compulsion to disappear into a labyrinth of duties and responsibilities. He or she has served others. Now the shoe should be on the other foot. How? By withdrawing from some of that reflexive engagement with other people's needs and ensuring that he or she has plenty of solitary, soul-nourishing time. Spirit wants to give this person a gift of magic and insight, or more precisely, he or she has already purchased such a gift with their karmic pattern of service. All that is necessary is to claim it. Where? In the great silence, on the mountaintop, in the wilderness, in the cathedral, in a peaceful bed. And that last little bit of in a peaceful bed, like that, just melted something extra off of me the first time I read it, because I have spent like the better part of the last 18 months like in my bed. So that has been something of like a, going back to that Virgo South Node and like beating up on myself. I'm not doing enough. I'm lazy. I'm, slacking. All of these conditioning layers had to be worked through in the last 18 months of like really deeply falling into rest. And through deeply falling into my rest cycle, I have found layers of myself that I have never been able to touch before. Levels of inner peace, levels of feeling like, not just being able to say that we are extensions of source energy, but feeling myself as source energy experiencing itself as this body, this life. And being able to personally experience that because I allowed every ounce of the outside world to fall away. I am going to point you towards this video where I go through this transition 18 months ago of like my year of speaking truth, and how as I allowed my truth and invited it to come forward so I could speak it, like the first truth that came was, hey, ghost your friend, ghost your best friend. I was like, what? And that set off a guilt bomb that took months to unravel, but it led to like literally sinking into myself, my inner dimensions, my inner planes of existence, like letting the rest of the world fend for itself for a while. And another really pointed passage that he has in here. Certainly we all have obligations we cannot in good conscience ignore. But very often for a person with the South Node in the 6th house, those people towards whom he or she are feeling responsible have actually reached a developmental stage where helping them actually does more harm than good. Some little birds never learn to fly unless they are tossed from the nest. The universe is symphonic in that way. One person's need to be less defined by responsibility harmonizes with the other's emerging need to fly solo. If we can only recognize that, the higher ground is not always defined by duty and self-sacrifice. With this trust of the beneficence of the universe itself and that well-being is dominant, it really does open us up to trusting in positive outcomes. So often the Virgo or 6th house South Node is trying to control the outcome by having a plan and a backup plan for your plan and a backup plan for your backup plan and a backup plan for your backup plan for your backup plan. This is way different than that. It's obviously the whole opposite way of operating as far as like trusting that the outcome will be positive, and that at the moment that you are inspired to move or act or do the part that feels really good to you and soul nourishing to you, that will be the exact contribution that is needed, and that every other ounce of what it's going to take to do whatever it is that you're wanting to manifest will be contributed thanks to the universe lining you up with others who will be bringing it to you. So there is a beauty in cooperating with the well-being that is dominant, which is to say, going with your own flow. So now just a little bit on how this Taurus North Node transit and the transit of the Scorpio South Node is helping you to develop your own personal North Node in Pisces or the 12th house. And one of the best things that I can say is that within Taurus, there is such a grounding into your 5 senses, your right here, right now, physical experience. And that is super helpful, because think about the contrast between like what Virgo is doing as far as surveying the crowd and the group and everybody around me to see how am I going to be of service, how am I going to meet the needs of those around me. that is clearly very different than what Taurus is doing as far as ground into your five senses. What do I hear? What do I see? What do I smell? What do I taste? What do I touch? And this practice of deepening into your now moment, again, lets you shed that over responsibility. It lets you feel the Pisces end of, what if I were going to go with my own flow? When we tune into our five senses, we can feel a whole lot easier. Hey, I'm hungry, I could use a snack. We can feel a whole lot easier. Hey, I'm sleepy, I could use a nap. We could tune into, oh, that's such a beautiful sound of frogs and crickets and everybody coming from the outside. Oh, I just want to go sit out there and listen to it. And think about it, like when we slow down into our Taurus five senses, simple, right here, right now moment, it opens up a whole nother dimension of going with our Pisces flow. I think it makes it a whole lot easier to go with our Pisces flow the better we are at our Taurus. Notice, like in the chart, depending on the degrees that you're at in both of those signs, they do sextile each other. So there is a harmonious relationship between Taurus and Pisces. I also think that building Taurus and purging Scorpio, both of them are going to help a lot with the anxiety over potentially making a mistake or being told that you're wrong in some way or that you messed it up, you're imperfect, you know, earth-shattering, we're all imperfect. But yeah, I think like building up the Taurus end is giving us our own felt experience of security. And if we feel secure on the inside, we are less anxious overall about everything, but especially, messing it up in the physical world, because we know that, Taurus and Virgo both are very resourceful. So like if I mess it up, I'll just fix it and it'll be fine, no big deal. But then also like purging that Scorpio end, like where that's bringing to light any of our like relationship patterns and enmeshment patterns and finding our power in other people. Like you think about, why are you so worried? Why are you so scared of making a mistake? Like this fear comes from somewhere. And one example that I heard, that like, especially with the sixth house signification of health, it's like this fear of making a mistake, like it could have been something like in a past life, like you were literally a doctor or like a surgeon or an ER, like trauma specialist. And like when you made mistakes, people died. And so that is the level to which you take it seriously, that like, I'm not going to make a mistake. I can't mess up. Like, oh my gosh. But the thing is, like with the Pisces North Node, the 12th house North Node, like you will make mistakes. And they'll teach you the meaning of the phrase happy accidents, because when you make a mistake and you accidentally wind up in an even better situation, like you start to see like, okay, so maybe I am allowed to make mistakes and maybe that's not such a terrible thing. This Taurus energy that we're building is really cultivating our ability to take good care of ourselves. So any of the nodal combinations, especially this Virgo 6th house South Node of this sense of over responsibility of taking care of everyone else, it's like there has to be a shift. Like this is that shift towards, you have got to fill up your own cup first. And then if there is overflow out of your cup, you've met all of your needs, you have energy to spare, by all means, like let your heart, let go with your flow and give it to whoever feels good to give it to. But at the same time, recognize that the first and top priority is managing yourself in the right here, right now moment. And the rest is truly up to the universe. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode in this series. I will tell you, my intention is to work through the rest of these episodes, release, one a week or so. Who knows what'll happen, because I'm doing my Pisces North Node thing, my 12th house North Node thing, where I go get in my bed until I feel moved by my flow. And then we do what feels good. So I promise to release the remainder of the episodes in a way that feels truly divinely, leisurely pleasurable to myself, and trust that that will be the divine timing of the highest good of what what I can do to contribute to the highest good of all. So thank you so much for spending this time with me. I genuinely appreciate it. If you have these placements, the Pisces North Node, 12th house North Node, I would love to hear how this resonates as far as your own felt experience. And let me know which of the episodes you're looking forward to next. Until next time, dear friends, you take such good care of yourselves, and so will I.